Hey, Dan.
Hi, Julie Wilson. We're back. Season 2 of the Ahab Breakdown. How are
It's
you?
good. It's all happening. We've been dreaming up all sorts of episodes for you guys over the summer. Everything from agents to marketing to narrative podcast. We have so much cool content in store for you today
And we're
or today. This
and by the way,
year.
so excited over the summer to have hosted a bunch of events on Clubhouse. I hope the rest of you are following us on Clubhouse because I feel like those events were really, really, really interesting for the listeners and also interactive. Having our audition Clubhouse last week, or 2 weeks ago. Really, really excited for Clubhouse as well.
Yeah, I actually hired one of the guys who auditioned for me via Clubhouse. I just hired him for a book, so it was really cool to see that that's not only a cool way for you guys to showcase your talents for us, but a way for you guys actually to get hired. And so we're going to be doing more Clubhouse events for sure. So as you guys know, happy you're here live. If any of your friends miss this event, they will be available on YouTube. Just follow Ahab Talent. We're going to put them up on the Monday following the episode. So a little bit different than before. Of course, follow us across all socials, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, now Clubhouse. And one of my favorite things, if you are in the recording booth, if you are recording something interesting across all areas of voiceover, tag Ahab Talent. We will repost your studio selfies and just keep in the know about what you guys are up to. So Dan, what are we doing today? What's this episode all about?
On this episode, these questions over the last 20 years have come to me all the time. Like, how do I cultivate relationships in the voiceover industry after I've actually met some people or I'm just breaking in? So this week, it's going to be cultivating relationships in the voiceover industry. Make sure you ask questions in the Q&A part of the site. We're going to have a VO roulette as we normally do. We're going to bring someone up on our virtual stage a little bit later. And if you're interested in being featured on VO roulette, type it into private chat to the panelists now. If you're picked, there's nothing you need to do. Alexis will be able to invite you up on stage. You'll turn your camera on and you'll get to hang out with us and the panelists.
Yeah. So I am always super excited about VO roulette. It's one of my favorite parts of the episode. So yeah, and please do ask us questions. You can begin that now and upvote questions, and that's how we're going to know what's important for you guys to learn more about.
So I want to start, a little bit different. This season, we're going to do things a little bit different at the beginning of the show. We usually play samples and things like that, and we will continue to do some of that. But I think we're going to start sample review with just content we ship. Like, what is content across all audio categories that we're excited about? So Jules, what do you have that you've been listening to maybe over the summer that you're really excited about? Because I think it's important for people to listen, right? We talk about that all the time.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So, we listen to VO content all the time, whether it's video games, commercials, animation, audiobooks. I am actually going to talk about an audiobook today because I am absolutely obsessed with this audiobook series. It's not just an audiobook, and it's not one of ours. It's actually from Audible Studios, and it's called Letters from Camp. And I don't know if any of you guys have listened to this series, but it is absolutely phenomenal. It had the first season last summer, second season this summer. And if you have gone to camp, if you had wanted to go to camp, if you're going to camp, if you never got to go to camp, this completely transports you to what I experienced as a camper, and it's so accurate. It's produced by Jamie Lee Curtis and Boko Half. It has a star-studded cast, which, as we all know, as voiceover actors or voiceover content creators, you don't need a star-studded cast to make something quality, but the actors on this program are absolutely unreal. We have Jake Gyllenhaal, Edie Patterson, Daniel Radcliffe shows up in the second season. Suddenly Sandler stars in it. She's Adam Sandler's daughter, full sound effects and music. And it's just done with such a creative, delicate touch that it really does transport you to what it's like to be at camp. And the humor is hilarious for adults. Obviously, I'm obsessed, but also kids will get it too. So highly recommend Letters from Camp.
I want to check that out. So what did I watch over the summer? I watched a really great series on Netflix called Money Heist. And I'm sure a lot of people have watched it on this show that listen to the show. But the thing that I noticed about it that I never noticed and or have been turned off for years by is horrible dubbing on shows that are in a different language that are then dubbed into English. And when I watched Money Heist, I could not actually believe at how good, not only how well the show was cast in the English language, but just how much the actors and the way they looked married the voices that were given to them by whoever cast that show. So go out and check out Money Heist, if only because it's so entertaining and a huge thriller, but also because it's one of the best dubbed shows I've ever seen. And the lead on the show is actually someone, and when I looked this up, I couldn't believe it because I've watched all the seasons of the show, but didn't know who any of these actors were by voice. And usually, you know how we are, we're listening to like radio commercials, and all of a sudden you're like, I know that guy, that's Eduardo Ballerini.
Yeah.
But I'm listening to the lead. I did not know who it was, and it's Todd Haberkorn, who has read audiobooks in this industry for a while. Really talented actor, but that show is fantastic, and the dubbing, I can't believe I'm saying it, but the dubbing was unbelievably good. So take a listen to it, and just to see how other industries are casting voice in different ways, I thought it was a really, really good example of really well cast audio.
Cool. So we hope you guys check those out. We're going to have more for you next month. We're going to keep listening to all sorts of content. So sample review going to be a little bit different this season. You know, Dan and I talk a lot on this episode. We hope our guests get to talk a ton. And so we thought it'd be really cool to give our guests the opportunity to say which samples have stood out to them. So we're going to let Erick Black, who's one of our guests today, tell you which sample that stood out to him. And Erick, you can go ahead and turn on your camera, and I'm going to give your bio over here. There's Erick. Welcome, Erick. So Erick graduated from Full Sail University. He's worked on a ton of audio stuff, from live sound reinforcement, operations at an independent TV station. He's worked as an audio engineer for a company that manufactures brass bells, which is just like a fascinating snippet right there. And his love of audio and his passion for the written word eventually led him to Dreamscape Media, where he is today. And he started recording and directing audiobooks. He's been casting and producing there for 5 years. He loves the audiobook community, as both Dan and I do. And he's also a lover of the outdoors. He lives deep in the woods with his wife, 2 daughters, 3 cats, and a bunny. So welcome, Erick. So happy to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank both of you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this.
So you guys are going to get a little sneak peek with Erick first before we invite on our other guests. So Alexis, why don't you pull up that sample review for Erick to talk about?
We'll get there.
There it is.
If you stay with those drunkards, you won't get a thing to eat all night. Please sit down. Here, next to Chia, said the sick-looking madam. Just a minute. Let's have 2 bottles over here. Do sit more comfortably. Here, on a cushion. How is Naoji? How should I know? I'm not his keeper. I'm told he's taken up dancing. He's probably got a dancer for his sweetheart now. Naoji's not a very economical type. Women on top of liquor. Excuse me? I said. I am Naoji's sister. You're very much like him. It gave me quite a turn for a minute. And for you to come to such a dreadful place. But you knew Mr. Uehara before? Yes, I met him 6 years ago. Mr. Uehara's hoarse voice barked. A check? That's all right. I'll give you a receipt. Coming. The maid entered with the noodles. Sorry to have kept you waiting. The madam offered me some. Please eat before it gets cold.
Great. So Erick, tell us about June Angela, I believe her name was. Tell us about
that's right.
What stood out to you about her sample there.
So I'd say probably right off the bat, what is nice is the way that she's labeled the samples on her page. So you know exactly, you can kind of pinpoint maybe what you came there for, you know what to expect. And that was multi-age characters, Japanese translation. So, you know, starting as a jumping point, the characters, multi-age, definitely, I love them. You can close your eyes, you see them. I'm always like, big characters. I love big characters. And I know that's not everyone's style. And and it doesn't work for every book. And somehow she created these big characters without really pushing super hard. It feels very natural, and I think it's really cool. And I think it really contrasts great with the narrative. So I feel like that'd be very listenable. You can spend 10 hours with her and be very comfortable. I like that there's a little bit of humor in there, which I think is, I think almost every book probably has at least a touch of humor. At least the author thought they were being funny at some point.
We hope.
Yeah. So I think it's, if it's fitting again in for the sample, yeah, I like to hear that. I like to know that you're going to be able to handle it when it pops up. And then another thing with the Japanese translation, that's probably, maybe one of the things that brought me there. I'm looking for someone that can handle the language. And there are names in there that she hits and they're comfortable. You don't get that weird like pause, as someone like gears up to say a word that they're not comfortable with. It kind of just flows off. So I really enjoyed the sample when I was digging around. And if you haven't worked with June, she is absolutely a dream to work with, too. So I'll just throw that out there.
Yeah, I mean, I really loved her range. I think you're totally right. Like just different ages, and like you said, not forcing it. It wasn't over the top. It was just felt very natural. The flow of the narrative fit in really nicely, and just she uses her voice really, real well. I really liked it too. What about you, Jules?
And for me, this is what's exciting for me about using Ahab and having people from other companies use Ahab, like Erick, because I didn't know about June. And so this is a great discoverability factor for me and maybe people that are outside of our wheelhouse and stable of actors that we've used before. So I thought she was really quality. I love that once I was almost going to cut the clip just so we can move forward. And then once she got into the dialogue, I was like, hold on, we got to let her play it through. So
yeah, I wanted to keep listening. I really did want to keep listening to that clip. And I also, like, as you said, I mean, it has been like our platforms now provided us a new way to share these voices, even though like even across publishers, we've been sharing voices for years with each other when we see each other at events and we can meet up and chat about who's out there. So thanks for raising June to us. I think that's a really, really cool clip.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I will say I loved Ahab is perfect for that, for kind of finding things that might otherwise be really challenging casting. It's just perfect, being able to all the parameters that you can really focus in on is
cool.
How I found her. So
awesome.
All
well,
right.
Why don't we bring up our other two guests and then we'll start talking about cultivating relationships in the voiceover industry. So
All
Dan,
right.
who do you got?
I have someone, a friend and a colleague, and my boss on the APA board, Michele Cobb. Please turn on your camera. Michele Cobb and I have done many, many presentations over the years. I have such great respect for her as a part of this industry. Michele has served on the Audio Publishers Association board since 2001 as a director and an officer, and is currently executive director. She's a partner at Forte Business Consulting, which provides business development service for the publishing industry. And she's a publisher of both AudioFile Magazine and MMB Media. So welcome, Michele. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, my pleasure. And technically you're my boss because the board is my boss.
You're so good at running it, it doesn't feel that way.
Oh, well, cool. Excellent.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And last, but certainly not least, Nithya Rajendran, you can bring up yourself. Hey there. So Nithya was born in India and raised all over the US, and she's in the audio space for her entire career, starting in the music industry and doing live sound at prominent New York City venues, to most recently running the New York voiceover program at SAG-AFTRA, which is where she was before she came to us at PRH Audio. So we are so psyched to have her as one of our newest Penguin Random House audio producers. But why Dan and I chose these three people to be with us today is their backgrounds are so varied and they have such robust experience, but also probably different points of view and different experiences too. So welcome, everybody.
Cool. All right. So I'm going to ask this question. I want to start with Michele, but I want, Erick and Nithya to also weigh in here. Michele, what's a good starting point for any actor breaking into the industry in terms of networking? It's always the first question I get from actors besides, will you hire me? It's that question. How do I network with more people?
Well, of course, I would say join the Audio Publishers Association. It's $165 a year. It gives you an opportunity to come to all of our events. In fact, on Sunday in Los Angeles and Tuesday in New York this week, we are having in-person social events. So you can meet producers, publishers, other narrators. That's a great way to network and also to volunteer. It's amazing when someone joins a committee and they're on a committee with publishers and producers and retailers, and suddenly they're doing a few things to get themselves noticed. And I do find that it actually helps you get work. Plus, we have speed dating, which matches publishers and narrators and gets them a chance to show off their work. So, lots of different opportunities through the APA.
Yeah, and I've attended a lot of these events over the years, even before being part of the APA board. But it really is a good place to meet new people and network. I totally agree. It's part of the reason we wanted you on here. You host we host so many events, and you know so much about them. So, what about you, Eric? What do you think?
Yeah, besides the APA, which is just huge, and mainly why I would recommend that is because you learn about the industry. So I would say start there. Find out why this is different. I mean, if you have an acting background, if you have a VO background, though there are crossovers, it is a different industry. And I think you really need to understand that when you go in, before you start approaching anybody about work, you need to know what those expectations are that are specific to audiobooks. Yeah.
And Nithya, you saw it from a different angle, at least starting out at SAG-AFTRA in studio. And I know you hosted a lot of live events yourself outside of working at SAG-AFTRA. What's your best advice?
I think when you're ready to start networking, make sure you're ready to be sort of public in terms of having your assets all ready to go. Making sure you're proud of your website, making sure that your social media looks good, or starting some social media accounts, having those business cards ready. Just being able to feel confident about meeting other professionals and speaking about your medium in voiceover, whether it be audiobooks or video games, and speak intelligently about it. So do some research on whatever area that you are aiming to get into, and find out who the players are, read up on it, and just be ready to present yourself as a total professional.
Right.
So Eric, I'm just going to dive right in. So you've cast a ton of actors via the platform. So a lot of people are wondering, when interacting with an actor for the first time, what do you expect, and what kind of stands out to you, and what helps shape that relationship from the start?
So really, to bounce off, if you're new to the platform, and I'm not going to be able to really find a lot of samples, the first thing is, where can I learn more about you, right? If you're established and I can go to Audible and find 90 titles and get your website and everything, that's pretty that's a pretty good path. If it's the first time working with Dreamscape, we have a spec sheet we give to you, so to kind of say, hey, this is the way we do things, which I imagine is different than other publishers. So we try to be as transparent as possible right up front. We have a database, which is great. It's private, it's just for us to use, but it's very helpful place for you to kind of put anything down. So what does stand out? What makes you different than everybody else? Is there a niche? What's your background? I love to hear personal stories from narrators. If you if you own llamas, if you live in Sweden, if you fly hot air balloons on the weekends, this is great, because then when that book comes along about the llama farmer who goes in hot air balloons over Sweden, I'm like, oh well, so and so will be able to jump into that flawlessly, if they're appropriate for it. So that's all I'd say. It's great to just meet people. That's hopefully we get back to this in-person stuff, and that's number one. What are you about?
Yeah. The hot air balloon thing is great too, because I do think even that general knowledge, you may just get a call from us saying, hey, I've got a lot of hot air balloon terminology that I don't know. Can you help us out with that? And that could be a good networking opportunity too. So the more people know about you, I think the better it is. Nithya, when you were over at SAG-AFTRA, And, you know, we work really closely with SAG-AFTRA, and some people are union members, some people are not, but I think it's important to talk a little bit about, you know, what opportunities are there for people to network when you're at SAG-AFTRA, even if it's just, you know, in your experience, you know, being in studio with them and getting to know them as an engineer when you were there.
Yeah, absolutely. So if for y'all that don't know, SAG-AFTRA LA and New York both have in-house studios for voiceover actors to use. So you can go in, practice, do auditions. You'll work directly with the booth director who will give you coaching, who will help you out with auditions, home studio issues. So you can do that for free, by the way. But in addition to that, there are classes, there are meetups, there are seminars. Outside of just that VO, you know, practicing and all that, also there's committees and meetings for every segment of voiceover. So there are annual and quarterly meetings for people who do TV promos, video game folks, obviously the National Narrators meeting that happens right around time APAC happens. But if you look at the SAG-AFTRA website, as well as your locals, you will see those on the event page, and all you need to do is RSVP. And I saw a bunch of people in the chat say, well, what about here in Atlanta and whatnot? And one of the benefits of this being in a virtual space is you don't have to fly out from Minneapolis or wherever you're based to participate in these meetings. So RSVP, take a look at the SAG-AFTRA website, take a look at your local websites, wherever your local is, and just keep abreast of all those events that are happening. We often get people who are industry leaders doing classes for us, whether they be video game directors or obviously audiobook producers, but there are a lot of resources within the VO Lab program at SAG-AFTRA.
Yeah, and I think
I did just see a question from the audience. Is that, do you know if that's open to everyone, or is that just SAG-AFTRA members, or do you know how that works?
Yes, absolutely. So it is for equity members and SAG-AFTRA members in good standing. So you do have to be union in order to utilize those resources.
Yeah. And the other thing I was going to just jump in and say is, you know, what's been so interesting about this universe, this audiobook universe, is that it's spread all over the country, right? There's talent all over the country, and we're trying to tap into it, all of us. And what's really been interesting is seeing narrators that have been in New York and LA now moving out to other parts of the country. Like January Lavoie, who I was talking to last week, like lives in Atlanta now. And I was like, so when are you going to start talking to actors down there and really trying to engage the community of actors down there to help bring along a whole new crop of actors to this industry? And I think, you know, that's the one cool thing. As much as we're kind of, we all hate being home, it's kind of cool that, you know, a lot of people have moved to different parts of the country, and the audiobook discussion has kind of started up in places it never has before.
Yeah, it's so true. So Michele, I'm kind of curious about your answer to this one. So, you know, you get such a overview of how everything works as working for the APA. So should actors approach different types of companies differently? Are there nuances to that? So if you approached me, would that be different from someone like Erick, or a different type of company, or is it all kind of similar?
Well, it depends on how you're approaching someone. So if you're at a bar and you go up to someone, you're just basically approaching them in the same way, where you want to have a personal conversation that isn't a sales pitch, right? Don't walk up to me and give me your 30-second pitch. Let's have a conversation and get to know each other. If you are doing it via email, then it is very much about how does that company want to receive your information, right? For Penguin Random House, could be sign up at Ahab, right? For HarperCollins, it is submit your demo through this form or whatever it is. So yeah, you have to actually do a little bit of research. Just sending out a bunch of cold emails doesn't necessarily mean you're following the rules of that particular publisher or producer. And I would say that one of the things that I've seen a lot in the audiobook world is other people referring you. That's super helpful. So if you are a new narrator and you are coaching with someone, or you're just getting to know people, don't hesitate to say, hey, is there anyone that you work with that you can refer me to? I'm a small audio publisher myself. It's a lot easier for when you're getting started to come to me than it is to go right to Penguin Random House, because I have, you know, slightly less high profile books, right? So you might come to me and have your first or second book, and that is a different approach, and it's a lot of referrals.
Yeah, I embrace the referral mindset. That's what I take the most seriously at this point in my career too. So outside of publishers, Michele, is there anybody else that actors should think to network with? Because that seems to
Yes.
be the goal for a lot of actors, but who else?
Producers, right? So John Marshall Media in New York and Dion Audio in LA or Mosaic. Like, there are major places in major publishing hubs. Atlanta, listen up. You've got a lot of different choices, but also just networking with other actors, get to know other narrators, because I can't tell you how many times I've had a narrator say to me, oh, I got this offer for this book and I couldn't get it in. I couldn't fit it into my schedule. So I said to the publisher, oh, have you thought of this person? They had time on their schedule and they got the job, right? So getting to know each other is super important.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, I'm always pitching, everyone, like, there's tons of forums on social media that you can get to know other actors and engineers and editors who are always kind of exchanging ideas and knowledge. And I think, sometimes the person sitting right next to you, even though, acting and narrating could be a very competitive world, it could be the person that gets you your next gig.
And I would also say get to know the audiophile staff, because
Yes.
they review a lot of audiobooks and they accept, you can send in a book, even if it's a Penguin Random House book, you can send it in and say, hey, I don't know if you've reviewed this, but I read it and it was super amazing. And, get to know those people, join their talent guide as well, because they can have an impact on your career, a good review.
Yeah. Eric, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I did it because obviously, the narrators and producers, great advice. But also, if you're working with editors and proofers and things, these people are also great. How many editors I know that have gone on to produce books, and they have the producer's ear too. Really, hey, you know what? They were great to work with. Hey, this book was really special. They're the ones listening to the entire thing front to back and know the ins and outs. So they're definitely people you want to, I'm not going to say snuggle up with, but treat
them well, because on the flip side, how many editors have I worked with who've said, this person they were not responsive, they didn't turn their files in on time, it was really hard to deal with them. And that's an easy for me to say, okay, I'm not going to hire that person again.
Yeah. And if you're going into studios, engineers as well, because engineers are sitting there for countless hours listening to all your flubs and not even getting to cut them out.
And also look at our staff these days, Dan. Iris McElroy used to be an engineer. Brian Ramcharan used to be an engineer. And now they're the ones making the casting decisions. So you never know how people's careers are going to evolve.
Yeah. So, there you go.
Erick used to be an engineer.
So this is my favorite question of all, because, and Michele, you're going to laugh when I say this because you and I have been in these for 20 years, but what is the biggest, what are just some faux pas to avoid when, talking to, publishers or any of the people we just talked about? Because I can name, tons of people over the years who have done the strangest things to try to get me to remember them, anywhere from, wearing entirely way too much cologne, so I always remember them as the cologne person, to handing me, something that I would never use with their name, a wrench with their name on it, just so that I remember them. And it's never going to get me to hire them. But what are some of the faux pas you think, people want to avoid when they're getting to meet people besides sweaty palms?
Well, you can't necessarily help the sweaty palms,
Yes.
that's, I won't fault you for sweaty palms, but I do think it is not giving that sales pitch, right? You run up to someone and you try to hand them a card and a CD and a mug. We got a lot of stuff going on. If you want to give me something, that's really nice. And you should know that should be pie or black licorice or cinnamon.
Or liquor.
Or liquor, right. So get to know people. It isn't just about handing someone something. That isn't necessarily going to make you memorable. What's going to make you memorable is getting to know someone. And, you might send me something and that's really nice. It might not be the trigger that's going to get me to hire you because you sent me licorice. What will get me to hire you is having that personal interaction and making sure that you've told me who you are. So the thing I always say in speed dating is, if you knit socks for cats, let us know in speed dating. And that is the kind of thing, right? I need to know if you are really good at making lemon meringue pie or whatever your special skill is, right? For me, it's picking restaurants in random cities. You've got a special skill. Let me know that. Let's have a conversation about that. I don't care about your mug. I got a whole drawer full of mugs or a box that my husband always says, we have too many mugs, and he just throws the extra mugs in the box. So,
Yeah.
Keep it personal, keep it about humans, and don't worry so much about stuff.
Yeah. Stuff is nice, but it certainly is never going to, the mug is not going to translate into, you know what, I'm hiring that person for my next book. There's no doubt. What about you, Erick?
When it comes to the initial meet, yeah, I've had a few that felt very stuffy and very businesslike, and it's not helping me get a sense of your personality or who you are at all. Yeah, I'd rather even just have a conversation. I know you're an audiobook narrator. That's why we're here, right? I know you want to do more books.
Yeah.
I know you're interested in literary fiction. It's
and don't hand me your CD of tracks either. That's not.
But I love the mug and the mug.
Yeah, the mug, even the CD. Like, can we all just agree that like CD demos are a thing of the past?
Oh, yeah. I don't even have a way to play those, right?
Yeah.
I will say I have seen narrators use branding very effectively with things, and the one that comes to mind is Ann Richardson, like sunflowers. She sends seeds every year. Not a big thing. Or you get her business
sunflower seeds. Ann, hit me up.
Or daisies. I'm sorry, they're daisies.
And Band-Aids at APAC. Do you guys remember getting Band-Aids at APAC? That's always really useful because you have to walk a lot, right? So I always get a blister. So Band-Aids, if you want to give me Band-Aids, that's good. Who did that? Can I tell you? I don't know. I think it was Tiny Eby though. Let me.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. But yeah, so then Anne, on her card is the daisy, on her website is the daisy. I think in her signature and her emails is the daisy. So, as a branding tool, it can be effective, but
yeah.
But yeah, you don't want to go over the top.
Nithya, what do you think?
To echo both Michele and Erick, specificity is great. And also not a sales pitch. We understand that you only have limited time in front of a producer or someone of influence. Don't bombard them with too much all at once. It should feel conversational and feel just not too much effort or bombarding us with TMI, too much information.
TMI. Yes.
So, even if you're going through a rough patch or with your part of your career and you want to get into audiobooks, just keep it positive, and keep it, brevity is golden for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think TMI is one of those things that often creeps into conversations. And look, I completely understand as an audio professional, people get nervous when they're talking to people that are decision makers. But I think, part of why we host these events is to kind of pull down that curtain and say, hey, we're humans, we have families, we have lives outside of, just making casting decisions all day. Just talk to us like we're human, and, we'll actually, remember you way more. And the last thing I'll just add to all that, and one of my faux pas is like, don't apply too much pressure to the people that make these decisions to hire you, because I've had people come up to me and say, you're going to hire me this year. And I'll say, well, I guess we'll see about that. No, you are going to hire me. And it's, I think it's just like, be careful with how much pressure you apply. Just like say your piece, become human, and, we'll be drawn to you, I think.
Yeah. I know that there's a bunch of questions popping up. I've seen some fly through the chat, but just make sure you drop them into our Q&A so that we know to grab them from there. I did want to grab one of those questions because I thought this was kind of interesting, and one that I'm probably not the best at answering because I'm very strong extrovert, but do you guys have tips for any introverts when networking? Because that might be a little bit more complicated for them. So I'll just throw that out to all three of you if anyone has an answer.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in a little bit because I myself am also an introvert. I liked, when I was an engineer, I liked being in a dark room, kind of isolated and editing and everything. And I get it. And it's sort of, I imagine for narrators who are in a booth and introverted to come out all of a sudden and have to be on is tough. So for me, I find I sort of have like this meter that fills up of how social I can be. And I just trying to be aware of that. And because I really enjoy meeting these people that I'm working with, and it's fun. So I keep stepping out there, keeping that in mind, and knowing that I'm probably going to get exhausted and want to go run home, back to the hotel, back to my house, and hide under a closet eventually, knowing that what do I want to say, rationing my the social amounts. Keep it 1 year to APAC if you have to, once a year.
I just want to throw something in, because I've seen a really good technique from introverts I've met over the years at APAC and other places, where they kind of team up with someone who's an extrovert. And I think it's a really
smart.
good technique. Like, even if you saw Jules and I, like, attach to people like us, because we're going to talk to everybody. And by that, you're going to network naturally, even if you're not actually actively like reaching for people's hands. Just being in the conversation is sometimes enough networking for an introvert. But absolutely, just like become a sidekick to an extrovert, and that could actually really do a lot of good for you.
Well, and also actually jumping off of something that Michele brought up earlier, I've had actors that I know very well and who I trust and whose work I work with them a bunch. They've pulled me over and said, there are 3 actors here you have to meet. And in person, that is awesome, because that's who I want to meet at these things too. So once we're back in person, don't be afraid to nudge your buddy who knows any one of us and say, can you introduce me? See what they say.
And also I just want to drop another question. This should take 1 second from anyone to answer, but I won't. Another question: are physical business cards still a thing in the COVID era? From Elizabeth Lagili, I believe that's how it's pronounced. Anyone want to answer that?
I have not had business cards since I started my own business in 2013. Business cards are not a thing in my mind, right? If I meet someone and I want to get to know them, I'll tell them where to find me, or I'm not hiding, right? It's really not hard to find me. So don't make yourself hard to find, right? And then be willing to, I'll be at a social and I'll be like, hey, let's exchange emails. Let's exchange, cell phone numbers. Like that electronic business card is really all you need. But somewhere I have a lovely silver, like Tiffany's card holder from my husband that is, just getting all sorts of, iodoxination or whatever it is on it. So, but no, I think don't bring business cards. I don't want them at the social. Also, you can't pay with money there anymore. So there you go. You have to pre-register so we don't have to take COVID money.
So to the entire panel, do you look at websites and newsletters? I mean, I know they're 2 distinct things, but are websites important to you all?
Yeah. For me, because I jumping back to a faux pas is like sending giant attachments, in an email. So I would appreciate a link to your website if there should be samples on it, and very focused. I think they should be very focused samples if you can do it, and a good overview of who you are. Newsletters are also great, and I imagine they're a lot easier than sending out 15 separate emails to other publishers. So it does not bother me at all that I don't get a personal email every quarter from a narrator. A newsletter is great to me, and if you updated samples or something else on your email or on your website, an email is great. Hey, check out new samples up. Hope you're well.
Yeah, I think our colleague in this industry, Caitlin Gehring from Harper, I follow her Twitter feed, and she's always commenting on things people need to do to their websites or not do on their websites. So follow Caitlin Gehring at Harper too. She's got some really good advice when it comes to websites.
And we like to razz her about Ahab sometimes.
Yeah.
So our back and forth is great.
But also I would say when it comes, I agree with Eric, like don't send me a large file in email. I'm slightly worried about opening anything that's not just a standard email from anyone outside my company. So don't send me a, 30 megabyte file that's actually, your reading of the first 3 chapters of War and Peace. That's not going to get you anywhere.
Nithya, what about you? Do you look at websites, etc., newsletters?
Not super actively, but I will say, sending, especially working with authors and getting people cast. I've had 2 instances where authors are really impressed with that narrator's website, but kind of push them over the edge saying, oh, this person just looks fantastic. They've clearly done a lot of great stuff and got good samples up. And it doesn't have to be anything over the top, but there is something to be said for a good looking website and something that's updated and gives you an author or whoever who's looking at it as a good snapshot of yourself. But I do like the newsletters are a great way to know what y'all have been up to. And especially if you're available, if there's any availability, it's always really helpful.
So I think this question is always very interesting, and I know we all probably have a wide variety of opinions about it. Do you guys think that should actors reach out to you about specific projects that they're interested in narrating? For instance, if they look at your front list and you're like, oh, PRH is going to do X book in the spring, do you appreciate those emails? Or Dreamscape's going to do it and do some book in October? How do you feel about those like advanced emails?
Yeah, I don't mind at all. Especially if you're interested, or I read some other stuff by the author. I get those often. Unfortunately, I think our window of acquiring things is typically smaller than like a print publisher that's doing their own material. So I get a lot of, hey, I saw you're doing this. Can I do it? And I'm like, well, we're a few months late, or by the time we get it out, by the time I see it, we're moving fast. And by the time it's, in the public eye, it's too late. But, a lot of people also are to go, hey, they're watching the authors and go, hey, book 2 in the so-and-so series, I saw it's releasing in October. And sometimes they're letting me know, and then I go and I look and I'm like, oh, it is. That's probably going to pop up. I'll pencil your name in. And when it shows up, we'll get it out to you. So I don't mind at all. Just I would say just manage expectations there.
Yeah, I have a faux pas that I guess I could do a whole episode on faux pas, Jules. But like one of the faux pas, and I think it has just a lot to do with the way that we produce books compared to maybe other publishers. But like, I get these emails from actors all the time who I love to hear from, and then they say, I have a 4-day window in December I'd like to fill with a book. And, like it may work that way at other publishers, but at least with us, I'm telling everyone, putting everyone on notice, like, we don't have this kind of cookie cutter like thing where we're just shipping books to actors. It's like, it is very kind of specific, every casting is done, with the author and trying to, on a schedule that, we all decide. So, we don't have like a box of books back here in my office that we just kind of say, oh, I got something for 4 days for you. But I do know that there are production companies that do have that. So, everyone works a little differently. But that is a kind of a mini faux pas as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, we're sort of on the opposite end of that. Is it often have these tight turnarounds that I'm mentioning that it's good to know, we might not have something suitable and we might not have the box at that moment, but often we have that box of books and I'm like, oh, that's great to know because I've got something here, Yeah,
it just, I think it just shows like, again, like there is no kind of like one way of doing this thing, right? We all kind of work a little bit differently. So it is important for you to, as Michele said, to get to know each individual publisher.
Yeah, because I, like Eric, I want to know, like you have a week, 6 months from now. Okay, let's talk,
So I guess we could do like 1 or 2 more questions, Jules, and then jump into roulette. But like,
oh my gosh, time is flown.
I know. So this is a good question. And are there tips for more experienced actors versus less experienced actors in networking? Because, I'll see, is it different for a Simon Vance who's recorded 1,000 books to record, to kind of network compared to someone who's just starting out? And, you know, are there any tips, I guess, for people who have been doing this for a really long time to network? Because I do feel like sometimes, you know, we're very hyper focused on actors starting out, but there's a huge contingent of actors who have been around for a long time, and sometimes just kind of get lost in the sea of everything that's going on, or, you know, or they're seemingly so busy that producers are like, oh, that guy's never available, like I need to go on to someone else. Michele, do you have any advice for actors that are a little bit more established?
I think it's very similar advice. Like you probably, even Simon Vance, right? Maybe he, you know, unicycles, whatever it is. It's like letting us know those little things and those interests outside of what we might know. We think of Simon, I think of him as a British mystery guy in many ways. Right? Maybe he really has a love of Ulysses S. Grant. I don't know. Whatever it is that would help cast him in other things, that's what you want to emphasize. And that's, I think it's true of a newer narrator and a narrator who's been doing it for a while.
Great.
Yeah, I've even had a very well-established narrator reach out and say, hey, I've noticed some holes in public domain titles on, you know, on Audible, or I don't think there's a very good version of, you know, Dreams by Wells, and I want to narrate it. Are you guys interested in publishing one? And we've been able to meet requests like that before. And other kind of, we do some video projects too, both iconographic and film and doc. And we've even worked most recently with like Gildar Jackson had this whole concept that he wanted to bring, and we were able to, you know, not me directly, but I was able to pass him on, and he has a pretty neat project that he's doing with us now. So
cool. Yeah, good idea is one you should share, right?
Yeah. So hey, yeah, bring it. Yeah, exactly. You're doing something right to be this well established and popular. Let's chat.
So we're gonna do one last question before we move on to VL Roulette, because the time has flown. So I'm gonna answer, or we're gonna have this question from Tiffany Morgan coming from the audience today. So when a voice interests you, but you aren't familiar with them, will you listen to a range of their work to see if they've gotten better over time, or will you just listen to 2 samples or move on? So when you're evaluating them, how do you approach listening to their work?
I mean, I listen to 1 sample, right? It's the first sample. You either got me or you don't. If it's not good, I'm not going to go on and keep listening. If it's good and you're not right for that book that I'm casting, then I will return and maybe do another sample at another time. But if 1 sample on your website is not good, you're probably not going to get another listen.
Yeah, I mean, it depends for me. If I am looking at a specific project, I might go, okay, we can work with this, or maybe there's some direction that we can go. If you are maybe fit a particular niche with all the different diversity in books, and you're comfortable sharing this, and you say, hey, you know, this is my deal, that might also be a thing where I'm going, okay, well, let's listen and let's really dig in here and see what you have and where you can go and what we can do with you. But then also sometimes it's like, ooh, that sample is really good and I don't need to hear anymore, or ooh, I'm not sure we have, you know, maybe we need to work on, maybe you need to work on something a little bit first. So,
and this is for me at least, the benefit of where auditioning comes in, because I can see where you're at in that moment for that project and know if you're the right fit or not. And if not, I'll move on. Or if you're like maybe the right fit, you might end up in my top 5 list. And even if you don't get that, you know, you really proved to me that you have something special there. And maybe for the next book, you'll land that one.
So Jules, I think it's time for one of our favorite segments.
Yeah.
VO Roulette. Alexis, do we have someone to come up on our stage?
I think we have Dominique Franceschi. I hope that's how I say your last name. So Dominique, why don't you come on up and we'll fire some questions your way.
Dominique, by the way. There she is. Dominique, I believe, was on our Clubhouse event
I was about to say,
a
Dominique,
couple of weeks ago.
you are on
Hello.
our Clubhouse. You're fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. Hi everyone.
Dominique was on our Clubhouse event, and when we finished the event, all of the producers that were on the event went and met up later, and we were like, where did she come from?
Honestly, she performed a kid sample for us, and your voices were distinct. The narrative voice was, it blew our minds. So
Thank you so much. I
welcome
came
to
from
Breakdown.
Colombia. Thank you.
Very cool.
So first question, where are you from?
Colombia, South America.
And you're living in Colombia now, or you're
No, I'm in LA. I'm currently in LA.
Cool. And tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you come to work in VO, and what are some of the things you've done?
I got started in VO. I got approached by a teacher when I was in college that said, hey, you should come to my course. I teach voiceover and I think you would enjoy it. And that was Stu Levin. He has since passed, but he's the one that got me into voiceover. And I took every class that he offered after that. And I don't know, I just enjoyed bringing characters to life. So I was in voiceover for a long time, and then out of nowhere audiobooks came, and it just felt so right. And it took me by a surprise how much I enjoyed it, and that this whole world existed, and that this whole community existed. And someone said, hey, you can actually make a living out of this. And I'm like, oh my God, wait, what? So here we are right now.
Dominique, are there any particular types of audiobooks or other types of voiceover projects that you like to work on in particular?
I really enjoy, so I was a teacher, I'm a teacher for little kids, for ballet. I taught early childhood education for children. So I do enjoy children's books very, very much, but I found this love for nonfiction books, particularly nonfiction books that are historical, particularly about Colombia, because I just love getting the word of nice things about my country out there. So I know those two are super contrasting, but I like bringing those stories to life and telling, hey, it's been not such a nice history, but here's where we are at right now, and here's where we could be going. So.
And are there any projects you've worked on that you've been particularly proud of, or that you want to share about? Anything that stood out?
I did a tourist video. It was a while back for Chia, which is kind of like a smaller city close to Colombia. Who's now its own city. It used to be just adjacent, but they have since grown where they're their own independent city. And that was nice because I got to learn a lot about my country doing that, which I feel is why I like those nonfiction books where I learn a lot about new things. And it was just great. And they showed it to like, hey, you want to come visit here? And that was my voice. And I'm like, okay.
Panelists, do you guys have any questions for Dominique? I mean, I have tons. So
you do kids' voices? Is that
yes.
Or you did a YA sample with lots of voices? What is your favorite like genre? I mean, I know you mentioned nonfiction, but within like fiction, is it geared towards younger stuff? I mean, obviously, you have a youthful voice and things, or do you?
Yes, precisely because of my pitch, I do tend to go towards YA. I'm not gonna say no to a mystery, but if it fits the voice, then sure. But I don't know how mysterious I could really get, when I'm sounding up here. So
yeah, maybe children's mystery.
Children's mystery. You'd be so good for children's mystery. We'll just combine those two.
There we go.
I have to ask this question. Is there a specific voice that always sticks with you that you've done in any of your work? That kind of and we asked Tara Sands this last year on an episode of this. Is there one voice that always sticks with you and a character that you love performing that you might want to, let us hear? I want to put you on the spot. But.
Sure. Yes, it was actually, I trained with Stu for that one. It was a little girl in a video game where she was being told this story by her grandmother. And he was like, okay, you're going to do both. Cause then I got to work different muscles. So yeah, the little girl was not, do you want me to do it right now?
Only if you're comfortable.
You feel comfortable, you don't have to.
Sure. Okay. I'll keep answering questions as her. So.
Okay.
Michele, Nithya, you have anything for Dominique?
Any questions?
So I actually went to Colombia. It was one of the last trips I took before the lockdown. So I wonder, where are you in the country?
Or where are you from in Colombia?
Bogota. So I was born, that's the capital city of Colombia. And that's actually where I was stuck during most of the pandemic. For 8 months, I was away from my husband, but now we're reunited. So I'm very, very happy.
Is there a book or a project you're really interested, if you could record a book that you love, or some project for someone, is there something that you would really want to do that you haven't had the chance to do yet?
So there's this book called Magdalena, and it's in Spanish, and the English version just came out like a month ago. And I was actually looking for it because I came across the book for one of my English samples, and I'm like, I want to do this in Spanish as well. And I went onto the deep dark web, and I'm like, I really want to be able to get the book, like not from the dark market. So I ended up finding that Google sells books. I have no idea they have their own book division. So I bought the book through Google, but that would be a project I would love, because it's the experience of someone visiting Colombia for the first time, being taken through Magdalena, which is a huge river that is connected to the Amazon. And they just tell their story of discovering this country. They visited Colombia for the first time when it was still not great. It was still a conflict place. And then they came back and they were like, it's like two different places. So I would love to bring that story to life, because I don't know, there's still the idea of Colombia being like all these negative things. And I'm like, yes, it made us who we are right now, but there's so much more. And I want to share that much more with the world.
Absolutely.
Dominique, your enthusiasm is so palpable. And I feel like this is what we were all talking about earlier, when like you're looking for an actor who's like excited about llamas or hot air balloons or Colombia. You know, that's like, if I have a Colombia book, you're going to be top of mind, because I can just feel how vibrant that makes you. And I know that you're going to bring so much passion and excitement to that book. So thank you so much for coming on. Great to see you face to face, and not just hear you this time, and hope to work together soon.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for creating these spaces. They mean the world to narrators. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Dominique. So good to meet you in virtual person.
All right. Well, Dan.
All right. So final thoughts. It's that time. It flew by. Let's start with Erick. Do you have any final thoughts for our audience?
I guess the main takeaway here that I feel like it is be yourself. You know, come on, let's really learn about you, and the books will come.
Great. Nithya?
Probably.
Hopefully.
They will come. They will come. Stay positive.
They're coming.
Yes, manifest that. Yeah, stay positive. Know that also, don't be discouraged if you don't hear back from one of us for a while. A lot of times we're caught up in other things, but if you made a good impression, that will last. And we'll always sort of think of you when there's a project that comes up that's like, oh yeah, Dominique or Jennifer or whoever. And so just plug away, keep positive, and don't be discouraged if you don't hear back. And if you don't hear back, also don't bombard, but we will have you in mind if you made a good impression.
I totally believe in that. I just hired an actor, Stacey Gonzalez, who I have wanted to hire for so long. Stacey, I don't know if you're here, but you are so fantastic. And it took a few years, and it was not for a lack of trying or wanting. So
yeah. How about you, Michele?
I would say, keep networking in whatever way that works for you, right? I too am an extrovert, but I just took a course in, networking for introverts and extroverts, and take all this advice, get to know other people, have them refer you, have them introduce you in person. Don't be afraid to send an email, and just keep working the program and listen to audiobooks. If you want to be sure that you are continuing to grow, you should be doing a lot of listening, and that can help you.
Yeah. How about you, Jules?
I would say do your research on the people that you're networking with, whether it's listening to the podcast they've been on, coming to these webinars, asking friends who know them, and get to know who they are, but also get to know what their style of communication is and what they're looking for, because you don't want to waste your effort or bog down our email boxes or reach out in ways that aren't conducive. So it really is, take some good research. And I'm like such an operations person sometimes. I'm like, make an Excel grid, be like, Julie doesn't like random emails unless they're recommendations from other people she knows, or Michele doesn't, she's more into this or that or whatever. So do your research.
Yeah, organize it. I will just throw in, leave the stuff at home. Don't give us stuff. We don't care about stuff. Just always be human and treat us like we're humans, and it will happen. It's just a matter of time, and just keep at it. As everyone said, just keep at it, and don't be afraid of us. Don't be afraid of us collectively. The more, you see us on this, I feel like, now that we've created this, Jules, everybody knows us, but like, I feel like, every person that works in this industry, I don't know one person that works in this industry that is not approachable. So approach, don't be afraid. We're not going to bite you. So
Yeah.
Jules, what is on tap?
Yeah.
For
so
our next episode.
Everybody, thank you guys so much for coming to this first episode. Our wonderful guest. Thank you for being here today. We're so excited for this upcoming season. We've spent a lot of time honing it and making a really well-rounded, multifaceted season for you all. So October 14th, mark your calendars. We are doing Developing Convincing Character Voices with Mark Grau, who is a freaking expert, and Ulka Simone Mohanty, who I've had the pleasure of hiring. And I discovered her through Ahab. And so we thought it'd be a really interesting contrast of two different perspectives on, different ages and genders, crafting believable character voices, multi-character dialogue. And so we're going to dive more into the creative process in October. So we will see you all there. If anybody missed this episode, they can tune into YouTube on Monday and catch this episode or any of our past episodes. We have tons of great ones on there. So
great. Well, good to be back in the saddle with you, Jules. And thank you again to our guests. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. We really love hosting these events. So
yeah,
have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in October.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
Bye.